The WikiLeaks founder, Julian Assange, has given a rare interview to the BBC's John Simpson. Assange says he hopes within a year to leave the Ecuadorian embassy in London, where he's been holed up since June 2012, trying to avoid extradition to Sweden, where he's wanted for questioning about alleged sexual offences. Well, John Simpson began by asking about Assange's new book, in which he attacks the search engine Google, claiming it is a force for evil through its connections with the US government.
Google's business model is to spy. That is its business model. That is its business model. It makes more than 80% of its money by collecting information about people, pooling it together, storing it, indexing it, building profiles of people to predict their interests and behaviors, and then selling those profiles principally to advertisers, but also others. So the result is that Google, in terms of how it works, its actual practice, is almost identical to the National Security Agency or GCHQ.
Why single out Google when most big, really big US organisations in one way or another have to live alongside the government and work with it?
Google has, through its marketing power and through its, its colourful logo, imprinted on people that it is a playful, humane organisation, that it is not a big, bad US corporation. But in fact, it has become just that. Google is also unlike, say, Coca-Cola, an organisation that does collect the world's information. It is now arguably the world's most influential commercial organisation.
You can't stay here like this for much longer, can you? This is absolutely crazy existence. I mean, you've got to get out, haven't you?
There's £7.3 million of police surveillance emitted outside this embassy. It is a difficult situation. It's not a situation that is easy for a national security reporter. You can't meet sources. It's difficult to meet some of my staff, etc., because of that surveillance. On the other hand, there are no subpoenas. There are no door knocks in the night, unlike other national security reporters. So in some ways there are benefits to the situation. But
I mean, it must be bad for you though, isn't it? Physically and mentally to be here?
It's a difficult situation. Other people are in more difficult situations. Chelsea Manning, for example, was sentenced last year, my alleged co-conspirator, to 35 years in US prison. Here in the UK, there's a lot of optimism. Finally, this significant section of the UK judiciary and Parliament has seen that this cannot occur again. Earlier this year, the UK passed modifications to ban extradition without charge, to insist on, if you want to speak to someone, you've got to come to the UK or charge them. You can't just say, well, I want to speak to that person, I'm not willing to use any standard mechanisms or...
You're talking about the Swedish government,
yeah, the Swedish government.
But the Swedish government's changed now. I mean, it's a left-wing government. They're never going to send you back to America, are they?
It's a very interesting situation. The Swedish election was on Sunday. We don't know yet what the formation of the government will be. It will probably be a centre-left government. And there's attitude changes there. We have an appeal in Sweden in just 2 weeks' time. But also here in the UK, the change in law and a recognition that the situation here should never have occurred, I think means that within, say, the next year, we're going to see a significant change.
Well, John, our World Affairs editor, is alongside me now. This interview time with the publication of his book. Let's just start with those allegations against Google. I mean, and have they had a right of reply on this?
Well, they put out a statement. The CEO of Google says there's absolutely no truth in it. They don't have those kind of links with the US intelligence services that Assange says. It's the kind of thing that you would expect them to say. How effective those accusations are, he himself is quite interesting about that. He says how Google does have this sort of friendly, relaxed, nice sort of neighbourhood feel to it. And of course, then he maintains that all of this information is being used and sifted and watched and listened to.
How does he see him? I don't know if you've interviewed him before, but he is starting his third year in there in what is pretty cramped conditions.
Yes, I haven't ever met him before, but he is very, very pale. I mean, he looks exactly like what he is, a prisoner who never sees the outside world, really. I mean, the prison, it's a self-chosen prison that he lives in, is worse probably than most prisoners in the United Kingdom would have, in that he doesn't get to go out at all. He was surprisingly hesitant, I felt at times, quite almost nervous at being interviewed, which was interesting for a man who's so articulate and so able to bring up ideas and to express them in very articulate language. But he did seem to be nervous, which I found interesting. And he suffers from the sudden lapses. He couldn't remember what month it was. And he couldn't even remember the name of the month, which I thought was quite interesting. But, you know, I've seen videos of him storming out of interviews and accusing particularly the BBC of all sorts of offences against decency. And in fact, there wasn't any of that side of Assange. He was quite sort of moderately relaxed.
He jumped bail, didn't he? And a lot of his supporters lost money. Well, did he have any regrets about what he'd done, how he treated people?
Well, let me just say, first of all, that the people, well, several of the people who put up the money and lost it are very bitter about it. I've spoken to two different people who put up bail and felt that he'd behaved disgracefully. I asked him about this. He seemed quite not contrite, because he explained to me the law that says that, in fact, a man who has jumped bail is not allowed to pay the people that put up the bail in the first place, but he says he will pay them back in future. And, you know, for a man who has this reputation of being very, very cold and very sort of cut off from everybody, he did seem to feel that, you know, he owed them an apology, which he says he gave them, and indeed the money when he can raise it.
All right, John, thank you very much indeed. John Simpson.